Hello, and welcome to Now Where Were We? A series of short videos about the history of Olympia, Lacey, and surrounding areas. Your host for this program is Deborah Ross. In this series, Deb takes us to locations that inform us about the history of our community. She also visits with local historians. We welcome your feedback and suggestions.
Hello, and welcome to Now Where Were We? An ongoing series of short videos about the history of Olympia, Lacey, and surrounding areas. I'm Deborah Ross, and today I'm at the intersection of 21st Avenue and Columbia Street in the historic South Capitol neighborhood. This is one of a series of episodes that I'm calling Iconic Intersections. That is, intersections that speak to some theme of our area's history. And today's theme is Joseph Wohleb, a man who is described as the man who designed the city. Joseph Wohleb, a high school dropout, was ultimately responsible for the design of over 150 buildings in Olympia and throughout Washington state. And at this intersection are 3 buildings, each with its own characteristic, that were designed by Wohleb. And we're going to visit each one of them. But first, a short introduction to Wohleb and his early history in Olympia. Joseph Wohleb was born in Connecticut, but grew up in Northern California, where he was exposed to the mission style that later made him famous in Olympia. He dropped out of high school and learned carpentry in the Navy. In 1911, for unknown reasons, he moved to Olympia and started calling himself an architect, although he had no formal training. Soon after, he married a local girl and then obtained his first big commission, the Jeffers Photography Studio, which introduced the mission style to Olympia, while incorporating a north-facing window to let in natural light. He made connections with all of the important people in town and obtained commissions for homes and buildings in a wide variety of styles. One of the things that most impresses me about Wohleb is his ability to understand the needs of his clients and build accordingly. From very utilitarian structures, such as this storage building, to traditional style churches, elegant bank buildings, and modest homes. By 1920, Wohleb had begun to make a name for himself, both with a series of structures in downtown Olympia and some residences throughout the city. And in 1920, banker and financier Clarence Lord and his wife Elizabeth commissioned Wohleb to build the beautiful Lord Mansion here at the southwest corner of 21st and Columbia. Following Lord's death, Elizabeth donated the building to the state of Washington on condition that it be used for public purposes. And for many years it was the State Capitol Museum, which has now recently been closed. A couple of years later, Henry McCleary, a lumberman for whom the town of McCleary was named, also commissioned Wohleb to build a home at the corner of 21st and Columbia, on one condition. That condition was that McCleary's mansion be even grander than the Lord Mansion next door. And I do think that Wohleb succeeded in meeting that condition. Wohleb departed from his mission style to use what's called an English Revival style for this mansion, with its leaded windows and its friezes that are reminiscent of a grand English manor. And with that, we'll go to the third building designed by Wohleb at this intersection. And I think you'll be surprised at what you see. I'm now at the northeast corner of 21st and Columbia, and this is Joseph Wohleb's own home, far more modest in scale than the grand mansions across the street, but pleasing in its symmetry and consistent with the scope and scale of other residential structures in the South Capitol neighborhood. We visited 3 different styles that Wohleb used just at this one intersection. And for the rest of this episode, we're going to be looking at some other Wohleb buildings throughout the city of Olympia. And I think you'll be as impressed as I am by Wohleb's ability to adapt to the needs of his clients and the scale and character of the neighborhoods that he was building in. From the 1920s on, Wohleb's work proliferated both in downtown Olympia and elsewhere. These maps from the Olympia Historical Society's website show many of the buildings for which he was responsible in Olympia alone. Though he wasn't considered an architectural innovator, his style evolved to fit the times and was always well suited to the needs of his clients. In the 1920s, he often used the mission style, which helped to establish the characteristic look of downtown Olympia. Buildings in this style include the Olympia Press Building, the Donald Building, the Martin Building, Olympia Junk, and further afield, the Earl Brenner House on the west side, and the Lincoln School and Washington School in southeast Olympia. In the later 1920s and 30s, he moved to more Art Deco and Art Moderne styles, such as the National Guard Armory, the Heritage Building, the Spar, the Rockway Leland Building, the Roy's House, and the Thurston County Courthouse on Capitol Way. In the 1940s, he was faced with a new challenge. Wartime shortages were making it difficult to find wood for residential homes. Working closely with Olympia Brewing Company's Frederick Schmidt and Schmidt's wife Elsa, Wohleb developed a way of using concrete bricks for home construction and employed unique ventilation and heating techniques that would keep the homes from becoming damp. The Schmidt's home, which is on the National Register, demonstrated the feasibility of this technique, which was then used for other homes in the same neighborhood in southeast Olympia. Wohleb continued working until the 1950s, eventually joined by his son Robert, who is also an important award-winning architect based in Olympia. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to Olympia's prolific and iconic architect. As you drive around downtown Olympia, keep your eyes open for some of these characteristic buildings. And feel free to follow the links at the end of this episode so that you can see and explore the interactive map that's found at the Olympia Historical Society's website.